Yo guys, Gluten-Free EDC here. I'm Brian, your gluten-sensitive representative. Today I have a small details overview of the Shirogorov and R.J. Martin Collaboration RQ36. A beautiful knife brought here by Steve, a good buddy of mine. You may recognize this knife from the CKF Davlis knife designed by David LeSpec, the unboxing of that knife. Towards the end, I also unboxed this knife because my good friend also provided this knife as well as another. So today I want to do a small details overview of this knife. Now by small details overview, I mean that I did not cut with this knife, I did not carry this knife. What I did do was flip it a bunch, I looked it over and tried to assess how things work in my best opinion, right? So this is just my opinion, and I'm gonna go over in fine detail looking at what makes up this knife. So let's kick this off by looking at the scales of the knife. Now, what stands out first, of course, is this lava and ash carbo tie. So this is a really unique material that I'm not too familiar with. It's carbon fiber with another material, possibly copper is what I think might be embedded here, but also the tie aspect is actually titanium dust. Really, really cool. So definitely carbon fiber and titanium in there at minimum. What you'll see too is this entire knife seems to be ever so slightly shadow boxed. I think that attention to detail stands out immediately as well, to just show the fine craftsmanship of this knife. Now, we'll move over to the bolster portion of the knife. There is this smooth portion that continues over here into the carbo tie. Now this is milled in this radial pattern and stops at the smooth portion, of course. This milled radial pattern continues over here. So where your fingers are in a lot of grip with the knife, you'll have light texturing, and it continues the radial pattern. It's quite beautiful actually in person. Feels really cool too in hand. The smooth part I want to mention, many of us are familiar with smooth titanium. There's something to this. It's unbelievably smooth. Not really sure. It's like a baby's bottom. So then you come down over to here and you'll see it's stepped down almost as though there's another radial pattern that would have formed. Really unique choice there. And then of course you have the lanyard hole, which brings us to this backspacer. Really soft jimping that you really feel in your palm. I think it's really nicely done, and it's just gorgeous. Beautiful finish there too. Now I'm gonna flip on back. You have proprietary hardware. That's classic Shirogorov, right? So most their knives, if not all, have some form of proprietary hardware. This is what I'm most familiar with. It's probably worth mentioning this is a production knife. So they're achieving this amazingness through their production line. It's probably one of the nicer production pieces I've handled. Now, next I want to focus on the pocket clip. It's a beautifully milled pocket clip, milled out right down here with that line, gorgeous. And then you have a pocket, and then if you can make it out, there's two pockets. I'm gonna whip out some light. So there's two pockets here. You have the main pocket, and then you have this second pocket, right? Slightly deeper, the second one in. This one being the second, this one being the first. Now, In and out of pocket, again, I haven't had it in pocket. However, there's a lot of heavy retention to this knife. You can't really pull up on the pocket clip itself. So I think that level of retention would make it difficult, but the pocketing might help. Then another issue that I think may be a potential issue, I should say, is that surface area in contact with the scale. That's going to offer this pocket clip all that high retention that it has to then be in contact with whatever fabric your pants or shorts are. So I would think that this could be difficult in and out of pocket, especially dependent on the size of the hem of your pants or potentially shorts. So yeah, I would venture to guess this could be difficult in and out of pocket. That's not necessarily a bad thing when you have this level of knife in your pocket. You don't want it going anywhere. You want to be certain that it's staying where it is. Now let's open this up. So here we have this classic R.J. Martin blade shape with a swoop down. It's a larger knife. Now, I was able to determine what my best guess is, at least, at what that double click is. I think it is the detent, followed by the stop pin. They're in such quick succession because that detent is fairly hard. It's perfect for this flipper, however. Now, the hard detent couples well with the incredibly light lockbar pressure, which allows that amazing drop shot guillotine action. It's incredibly smooth opening and closing. Now, I want to point out the detent. I'm going to get this light back out again. So you can see the detent ball is actually sticking out pretty darn far. I believe that is what's causing that initial click to occur. It seats so far into the detent hole when locked up that to push it out, it actually makes that cracking sound. And I'm going to, just for the detent sound, right? So it is a stiff detent. It works real well. Also should note there's no jimping here. It works fine, but I wouldn't mind some jimping there for some added traction. What's cool here, when you open it up, you see jimping here as well as jimping in the blade. Feels really cool. Doesn't really offer too much traction, but really jimping to me is more, forward momentum and stopping the blade from going one way or the other. We'll leave it at that. So, but really cool, the jimping, I like it. It's a softer jimping too, worth noting. The blade is S110V, so really, really high-end steel. S110V, what I've heard about it is that it's got great edge retention, it's not going to chip too easily, and it's got really good corrosion resistance. So overall, fantastic steel. The blade is perfectly centered with this ballsy backspacer. Amazing. So not only is it going to be perfectly centered, but it's going to seat into that backspacer. It's just impressive to see. Now I'm going to put some fingerprints on here. No blade play whatsoever. The lockbar tension, again, incredibly light. That has to be one of the lightest lockbars I've ever experienced, which I think is why they have the detent as stiff as they do. Makes for a great combo. Now let's go to lockbar access. You can see that the lockbar is proud of this finger choil. So this one on the right, it's proud there, and then it's got some cutout right there. So incredibly easy to access. It being so light, you don't even need great access, but it provides it there just in case, right? So that attention to detail, fantastic. Overall ergos, this is a big knife. Now I have a smaller hand. I'm a medium-sized glove, but I'm definitely on the smaller side when it comes to hand size. Now this can be used, I think. You are gonna meet up to the blade, but there's enough there for me that I feel confident that I'm not gonna cut anything. If I'm gonna be doing more of a slicing motion, I might not use that. But, so that's fairly comfortable. And then if you go back to this finger choil, in hand, it's actually incredibly comfortable. So you have this, you have a few lines going here, which I think is really cool. This kind of swoops down ever so slightly into here and then back up. So you have this beautiful line, goes back down a little bit and then back up and then drops off. This drop off to me is incredibly important because that fills the swell of your palm, right? And then it also has a different angle for your thumb to lie upon. So in hand, I think that's incredibly important to have that line, that angle where there's two main portions. Now, for me, my thumb lies into this gap here, but where it kind of swoops down for the majority, where it's almost concave, that's really unique too. Feels fantastic in hand. I think this is a really, really well thought out ergonomic design. Overall, I think the blade shape, you know, looking more specifically at the drop point blade shape, so it comes down, very standard to me. It's got a great point, doesn't seem like it would be too weak. The blade stock helps out there. So it's a decent blade stock thickness. It's what I believe is a hollow grind. Wouldn't be surprised if it's a flat. I'm not the greatest at being able to tell. But yeah, fantastic. It gets fairly thin behind the edge. Not horribly so, but I could imagine this would be incredibly slicey. Again, I didn't use or cut with this knife. You have the polished flats, which are fantastically gorgeous. And then the finish here looks to be some sort of bead blast, I would venture to guess, but it's almost got a mirror quality to it. Now, you'll see the Shirogorov logo. It's that bear. Then on the opposite side, you have R.J. Martin's with the RJM. So my overall opinion of this knife is attention to detail. I think that's the takeaway of this particular knife. From the shadow boxing to the milling to the finishing on the blade, the coupling of the stiff detent with that detent ball poking out, but the light lockbar pressure, I think it all adds up to just really, really high level of attention to detail. Some other bits of attention to detail that I've come across. So you have S110V for the blade steel. In here, you can probably make it out without the light, but I'm going to shine a light on it. You could see that almost like star pattern. I'm not quite certain what that refers to. I think it refers to the roller pins. This is using bearings that are rollers rather than ceramic balls. Pretty neat. Looking further in, you could see just this gorgeous, this gorgeous milling. There's pockets within the pockets. So not only are the liners milled, but then the scales that are sitting on top of the liners themselves are milled. Beautiful. That's a lot of milling. It's really cool. I don't know that I've seen milling done that way before, where it's both liner and scale. High attention to detail there. Just a clean design overall. And then you have here, it says, if you can make that out and get my hand in there, 55 out of 100. So there were 100 of these made, presumably, and this is number 55. Really cool. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This is a beautiful knife that, if anyone were to come across one and they're thinking about it, if you're into big knives, you're gonna like this knife. The action is some of the best I've ever come across, especially for a flipper knife. I think how they did that detent coupled with the Lockbar tension, it's phenomenal. It's something special. So there you go, guys. Thank you again to Steve for lending this to the channel. I've had a great time with you guys. Hope you have as well. Take care.